What if the legacy she spent decades building, the fame, the fortune, the impossible glow, became the very thing that brought silent tears to her own family? Angelina Jolie, the warrior of Hollywood, the humanitarian who walked into war zones with nothing but compassion, the actress whose presence could command an entire room, seemed to embody strength carved into human form. With an estimated net worth exceeding $100 million, estates stretching from the private hills of Los Feliz to her secluded chateau in France, and a career crowned with Oscars, humanitarian medals, and global reverence, her life looked like an empire built on light. Yet every empire casts a shadow, and hers held a quiet ache that followed her through every dazzling red carpet and every triumphant role. Behind the fortune her children would one day inherit lay memories far heavier than gold, memories shaped by sacrifice, solitude, and wounds the world never saw. And somewhere within that radiant empire, a single question waited, trembling beneath the silence. What does a legacy truly cost? She did not begin her life inside the safety of a perfect home, but inside a fracture, a small, quiet break in the foundation of a family touched by fame, yet haunted by absence. Born in Los Angeles in 1975 to actors Jon Voight and Marceline Bertrand, Angelina Jolie grew up surrounded not by the glamour the world would later associate with her name, but by a lingering coldness that settled in the corners of every room after her father left. Her mother, gentle and resilient, tried to shield her and her brother from the dust of disappointment, cooking simple meals, whispering prayers to keep hope alive, and carrying the weight of two parents on her own shoulders. Out of that fragile world emerged a young girl who understood hunger, not the kind solved by food, but the kind born from longing, from the ache of wanting to be seen, held, and chosen. And in those dim evenings, watching films with her mother on a small glowing screen, she felt a spark, a quiet ignition that told her stories could offer the strength life had denied her. That spark became a vow, soft but unbreakable. She would rise, she would build, and she would never again be powerless. Like a seed pressed beneath cold earth, her resolve waited for its moment to break into the light. Her rise did not begin with applause, but with uncertainty, auditions where her voice trembled, roles so small they barely carried her name, and long nights wondering whether the spark she held was enough to ignite a future. Yet something in her refused to dim. When others hesitated, she stepped forward. When doors closed, she pressed her hand against the silence until it opened. Her first breakthrough came with Gia, a role that demanded every ounce of vulnerability she had spent years trying to hide. That performance did not just win her a Golden Globe, it announced her, unmistakably, as a force rising from the ashes of her own past. Soon after, Girl Interrupted transformed that rising spark into a blazing triumph, earning her an Academy Award and placing her firmly among Hollywood's most magnetic presences. With fame came momentum, and with momentum came an empire she built piece by piece. Action films like Tomb Raider expanded her into a global icon, while dramas and biographical roles showcased the emotional depth she carried like a hidden blade. As the world watched her rise, she diversified her life beyond the screen, acquiring homes that became sanctuaries, investing in land that offered quiet, and traveling to conflict zones that awakened her sense of purpose. She adopted children from across the world, forming a family not out of tradition, but out of a fierce, deliberate love. Her Los Feliz estate became a refuge, a place where art, activism, and motherhood intertwined, while the historic Chateau Miraval in France reflected the scale of her ambition. Vast, serene, built to endure. And yet beneath every triumph was a subtle loneliness that never fully left her. Success amplified her voice, but it also deepened the silence she carried from childhood. She poured herself into work, into humanitarian missions, into motherhood, building a life that stood tall against the challenges she once feared would break her. To the world, she became unstoppable, the woman who could command Hollywood, negotiate with world leaders, and raise 6 children with intention and grace. But empires built on resilience often hold a quiet cost, and as the lights grew brighter around her, the shadows within them began to lengthen. Fame had lifted her high, fortune had solidified her legacy, Yet somewhere between the applause and the late-night echoes, a fragile truth waited, that rising so far, so fast, can leave the heart searching for a quiet place to land. She had everything, yet lost what mattered most. The higher her empire rose, the more fragile the ground beneath her feet became. The marriage that once felt like a sanctuary collapsed under the weight of pressures no one outside those walls could truly see. Arguments sharpened into distance, distance hardened into silence, and silence eventually unraveled the family she had spent years stitching together with tenderness and resolve. In the quiet that followed, her home, once filled with laughter, footsteps, and the warm chaos of 6 children, felt suspended, as if every room were holding its breath. The divorce from Brad Pitt was not just a public rupture. It was a private wound that reshaped her world, leaving her children caught between love and uncertainty, and leaving her to carry a grief she could not fold neatly away. Health shadows followed close behind. Preventive surgeries meant to secure her future instead deepened her sense of vulnerability, as if the body that had carried her through war zones and film sets suddenly revealed its fragility. Nights became longer, quieter. She often spoke of feeling alone in a room full of noise, a sentiment that echoed through the vast spaces of her homes. And even as she continued humanitarian work, her steps grew heavier, her voice softer, the spark inside her dimmed by exhaustion that no camera could capture. The fortune she had built, the houses, the vineyards, the international properties, could not protect her from the storms within. Her children watched her navigate battles they were too young to understand, and though she shielded them with everything she had, they sensed the weight she carried. In those years, success felt distant, as if it belonged to another lifetime. All the accolades, the global admiration, the triumphs she once held with pride, seemed suddenly small against the ache of a family divided. And in the dim light of her quiet moments, the truth pressed against her like a cold reminder. Even the strongest warriors bleed. The empire stood, majestic and unbroken, but the woman who built it walked through its halls with a heart weathered by storms no fortune could ever calm. In the stillness that followed the storms, something remarkable emerged. Not the remnants of a fractured life, but the quiet architecture of a legacy built with intention. Angelina Jolie did not seek immortality. She earned it through choices shaped by conviction rather than comfort. The financial empire she leaves behind is vast. Properties across continents, investments in film and humanitarian ventures, and the enduring value of her cinematic work. Yet her true inheritance is not measured in dollars, vineyards, or estates. It lies in the 6 children she raised with a global sense of belonging, each one carrying a piece of her courage, her compassion, and her belief that identity is something crafted, not inherited. They grew up watching their mother turn pain into purpose, witnessing how she poured her heart into advocacy for refugees, education for women, and the protection of those whose voices were silenced by war. Her humanitarian legacy stands as firmly as her Hollywood triumphs. Programs she supported continue to shape communities. Initiatives she founded still offer light where the world is darkest. Her story teaches that resilience is not noise but endurance, a slow and steady flame that survives long after applause fades. And there is something profoundly human in the way she built her life, brick by fragile brick, guided not by perfection but by the will to keep moving, keep repairing, keep loving. For the family she leaves behind, her fortune is only the surface. The deeper inheritance is the strength she modeled, the empathy she practiced, and the reminder that even in silence, a life can cast an enduring glow. Her legacy is not a monument but a map, one that leads toward hope, toward compassion, toward a future shaped by dignity rather than fear. In the end, her story does not close with grandeur, but with a soft, lingering quiet, the kind that settles over a home after the lights fade and only memory remains. The legacy Angelina Jolie leaves behind does not shout. It hums gently, like a distant echo carried on warm evening air. Her children will walk through the world with the strength she forged in them, guided by the compassion she carved into every choice, every sacrifice, every moment of courage that defined her life. The estates, the accolades, the films, they are chapters. But the lasting imprint is the light she offered to others, a light that continues long after she steps out of the frame. And as her empire stands, serene against the passage of time, it reflects the truth she came to embody. That greatness is not measured by what we gather, but by what we give. In silence, she learned to rise, and in silence, she leaves a legacy that will not fade, carried forward by those who knew her heart not as legend, but as home.